And this is recording, and we'll put one over here. So we've got double recording,
Okay,
and we'll just go from there.
great, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for your patience, Les.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry that I'm not there in person.
Well, you're somewhere more fun.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay, so I would like to call to order the Thursday, June 15th, 2023 meeting of the Parks and Community Services Committee. Thank you for your patience, everybody, this morning, all the efforts to get this going. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Let's start with Thursday, May 18th meeting. Does anybody have any changes or any changes for that meeting? No? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes for the April 20th, 2023 minutes.
The May 18th.
Oh, and May 18th. Wait, okay, sorry. Anyway, May 18th
Okay,
minutes.
any second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Now the minutes of Thursday, May 25th. Does anybody have any corrections? No? Okay, thank you. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the May 25th minutes.
Thank you, Hannah. Second?
I second.
Thank you, Betty. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
And now the minutes from the Wednesday, June 7th meeting. Any corrections? No? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the Wednesday, June 7th meeting.
Thank you, Anita. Second?
Second.
Hannah, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you very much. Next is public comment. Jan, do you have any comment today?
Not today,
No?
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, first item is monthly state of the parks.
Go ahead, AJ.
Well, Kirk and I have put up the windscreens for the tennis courts. We were talking about waiting to plant some more trees until later in the year because with the watering route, I'm already watering the trees that we planted with the kids and then the other Leyland cypress trees as well, so it might be too many trees to try and maintain. So that's still on the agenda to do. I've made the path wider for the tsunami evacuation path at the end of Elm Street for Rick, and then we're planning on putting some wood chips down to make it more, pronounced that that's the actual path we need to go to. And then for me, I've just been doing regular maintenance, mowing, started trimming hedges. Found my first bee's nest the hard way this year.
Oh, no. How many stings?
Just one.
Oh, that's
Luckily, I thought they were flies at first. But other than that, it's just landscape maintenance for me. I'm sure you can add something for that.
We put up the flower baskets, which we do every year. Not so much us, but the department has rebuilt the beach access through the riprap, the rocks at the end of Umpqua. So they were able to be used, but now they're much more user-friendly. We built the existing rocks, nothing new came in. So that's a significant improvement to one beach access at Umpqua. The porta potties are here behind the Midtown restrooms, and those are installed for the season, and we also had to build and install a new trash receptacle to go along with them. And the Thursday concert in the park series begins next week. I don't know any dates about Total Honor Arts Colony concerts. They usually do 3, maybe they'll do, I'm assuming they will, but I don't know when. But I think that pretty much we expect every Thursday night through the summer. And again, AJ mentioned citywide landscape maintenance, mowing, hedges, and irrigation has begun. It's been kind of dry,
Yeah.
but maybe this weekend is going to be. And that's what I got.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Everything looks great. You guys have any questions for AJ or Kirk?
No questions, just thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Next, right-of-way trees. There were none in the packet. No applications for heritage trees. So, community grants. So we have, we met on the 25th. Well, we met on the 7th. And the final recommendations are in the packet. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to say?
Stacy, this is Les.
Mm-hmm.
How will this be communicated to the council?
So after we vote on this, we send the information to the council, and it is on the agenda for, well, it will be on their agenda for the, it will go to the July 11th meeting of the council, and they're asking that a Parks and Community Services Committee representative be there and make a recommendation. And then on the August 1st meeting, council will vote on it.
Thank you.
You said July 11th.
Correct.
Any other questions? Okay, would you like to make a motion to accept the community grants?
I motion that we accept the community grants funding.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you so much, and thanks to everybody for working on this. Tessa, thank you so much for putting it all together for us. That's great. Thank you. Okay, next we have memorial policies. So Les sent, in the packet is a document that Les Sinclair put together. So I'm going to have him talk about how he did that, how he worked on it. Les?
All right, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So we talked about this at the last meeting, and I had an informal conversation with Public Works and got a sense that they would like to look at something where a commemorative tree could be planted as an option to the commemorative plaque policy that was already in place. And then, of course, the request, as I understood it from the council, was to look at what other cities were using for a naming process or naming some kind of public object. In our case, it came up around the First Street Bridge. And so what I did to produce the document that's in the packet, I simply went and I looked at a number of cities, including our own commemorative policy, and I tried to pull together what I thought was the most representative practices that that I could find. And so I won't read this whole thing to you, but there are basically three ways to commemorate a person in this policy document that I put forward. One was I simply restated our existing commemorative plaque policy. I didn't change any wording or make any changes at all to that. I simply restated it. Then I added a commemorative tree planting policy, and the bulk of this language came, I think, from Lake Oswego, but it might have been one of the other communities in the Portland area that has a commemorative tree policy. And then finally, I put a third thing that was called commemorative naming of public assets. And I pulled that out of, I think out of this City of Portland Parks stuff. But anyway, like I said, I don't want to read through it and waste a bunch of people's time, but particularly in the commemorative naming practices, there was a lot of variability among different places I could find a policy. In one place there was generally everybody had stuff that said that the person to be recognized had to be exceptional, had to have made significant contributions either to the community or to the state or to the United States. A lot of times that the person had to be deceased before they could be recognized, and that time frame varied from 1 year up to one place said the honored person had to be deceased for 20 years before they could be considered. And so I suspect that the thinking there was you wanted to have enough time that, I mean, frankly, we're seeing people that have statues today that are being taken down because now we don't believe that they were as, worthy of honor as people thought they were, in years past. So maybe that's what that's about. I'm not sure. But basically, there is a list of basic criteria that a person has to pass. And this is on the top of page 13 or in the packet. And then after that, I pulled the process straight out of the Portland document. And so this is what I think the city council was wanting from us was, what process should they follow in order to consider renaming the First Street Bridge? And so, again, I didn't really write this. I thought it was the most reasonable one I could find, and so I'll submit it to the group for their discussion. And that's about it, Stacy. I don't think I have anything else to add, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can I go real quick? Just
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Les, for all your hard work on this. Many of you watched the city council meeting on Tuesday night, and the commemorative or memorial trees was brought up. So city staff is going to come up with some language on the tree portion, and that'll come back to you guys to take a look at that. So I think we can wait to discuss that until we have some writing in front of you guys about that.
Okay, yeah, they were all in huge favor of it, of the tree.
Yeah.
The commemorative trees, great.
So Trevor, this is Les. I did listen to to that meeting, and I did think that everybody was quite in favor of the tree. I don't think that what you'll find in the document that I put together conflicts with anything I heard described. But again, this is just a draft document, and I'm more than happy to make any changes that need to be made.
Perfect.
Do I recall correctly that Kirk at one time kind of said that the commemorative trees take up a lot of time maybe to maintain from the city staff, and that where to place them so that the plaques were a better way for a number of
Commemorative trees would not have plaques on them.
No, I know that, but they'd be
Just-
planted, and that's where I thought, Kirk, if you can correct me, or,
I was mostly referring to the old policy,
Okay.
where we had to ensure the tree would live forever.
Okay.
And have a plaque on a 4x4 that you had to make sure it didn't rot.
Okay.
To replace the plaque, so, and the previous policy evolved out of the Parks Department. It was a
Right.
pretty loosey-goosey situation where my predecessor said, let's have this policy in his head. So there's all kinds of different aspects to it, none of which I recall had gone by the council or the Parks Committee or anything like that. So then when it fell to us to like, we had one lady who didn't like the way, she wanted a different species of cherry tree out here, so we cut one down and planted a different one, and it was like, this is ridiculous. And that was, so this proposed policy, all of a sudden, the donor doesn't pick this, they have a very limited choice of species. Before, there was some bizarre stuff out there, and they picked the location, and we'd just do it even though it was a wrong location. And then we have to maintain that plaque, which is, and guarantee, if the tree ever suffered, we have to replace it with the exact same species, which weren't always that easy to find. This policy, I believe, hasn't been proposed yet, but I believe it's going to be much simpler in that the Public Works Department, well, the city picks a location, a good location. We have a short list of recommended species or required species, and that's kind of like the end of it. And I guess there's not, hopefully no guarantee that it will be a flourishing and live forever, because.
And we're gonna require it to be like a mature tree, at least a 6-foot tree, so that gives the tree a better shot of surviving.
Yeah. Well, I got it in my head somehow that what if the Heritage Tree Program, if somebody could nominate a heritage tree as a commemorative tree, I don't necessarily think that a plaque, but I don't know if our heritage tree would have a plaque, but that might be a way, because that's where I'm anticipating that everybody wants to plant a tree, and it's going to start becoming, well, where are we going to plant it so it's going to survive? And
I'm not sure if I understood the first part about I'm really urged against plaques on heritage.
no, that's what I'm not saying, but just as a way, and so that we're not necessarily getting into, everybody wants to plant a tree and they want it in the city park, and so we run out of
Well,
maybe space.
they don't get to say that it's in the city park. That's my point.
And they might donate a tree to us, and it might sit in our stockpile for several months until we find a location.
And it could be up in the forest reserve or in the citrus.
Well, that's what
species.
I'm just asking if this is an additional option for somebody to commemorate, is if they were to nominate a heritage tree that, is sponsored by whoever they want to commemorate. I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility for people that, they love this big, huge tree because their grandma, would sit under it. So they want to somehow commemorate her by nominating it as a heritage tree. I guess that's kind of maybe
I think that's a good idea, and I think it modifies or adds that value to the heritage.
Yeah, and
program.
I think that it would also motivate people, to know about the Heritage Tree Program and to get out there and nominate a beautiful big tree in honor of someone. So I'm not sure how that could work exactly. So I'm just wondering, as an option for somebody other than a tree, a bench, or a plaque, that there's also a heritage tree that they could nominate. So just throwing that out
It
there.
wouldn't take the place of just nominating a heritage tree. It would be in addition to, like,
Yeah,
I guess I don't understand what's the,
Well, you
I
could-
want to nominate this tree, and I'm thinking about my grandmother, whatever. I mean, like, how would you recognize that?
well, that's why I'm throwing it out there. I don't know exactly how it would work, but just wondering if it is a possibility to be an option for someone, just as a way to really kind of jumpstart the Heritage Tree Program.
Is, when we did away with the heritage trees and benches and stuff, and we just had the plaques in the bandstand, one of the more recent plaques was a friend of Billy House, and the plaque says, "This is the tree I promised to plant Billy in the parks," and it's just on the plaque. Couldn't do a tree.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in other words, if you want to, my point is that if you nominated a heritage tree in honor of somebody, that could be recognized in one of the plaques, because the plaques can say whatever you
Sure.
want them to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that's something that we could add to the application with the Heritage Tree Program, like, are you nominating this in the name of someone? That would be an easy way
Yeah.
to tie it on there.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I was gonna do that in honor of somebody, I would like a plaque somewhere around that tree, so it recognizes that one tree. It's not, have to go down to the bandstand to figure it out, or look online to figure it out. I want it near that tree somewhere.
Well, and that's where, getting into where we're going to show people where the heritage tree is, that it would be in that information that this heritage tree is in memory of Grandma Jane or something like that.
But
We want to
it's not-
avoid, we want to avoid plaques in the
Yeah.
tree.
Right, because that's what I'm understanding, is that we don't want to put plaques on heritage trees, so somehow they're gonna have to be, I mean, we're gonna have to show people where they are. You don't want a plaque on it, but you're gonna have to have some sort of a brochure or map somewhere that says, this is a heritage tree.
Are these all located in the Sitka Spruce Reserve?
No, I think the heritage tree program is in the right of way, so it,
City- city
yeah,
property.
so Public Works would be,
And I'd like to have a discussion about a mapping, that we select a heritage tree and we get a stockpile. I
Yeah.
want to continue that discussion because I want to involve my city arborist because he's seen the devastating effects of mapping where heritage trees are located. He's seen some negative effects from that.
right, but we're gonna have to have some way of showing people where the heritage tree is, so,
We'll discuss that, we'd like
Yeah.
to discuss that further with our arborist.
sure,
And you can talk about his experience with that.
yeah, that'd be good to know.
So the other part of this document that Les sent is for naming of public assets. How does everybody feel about that? The naming of public assets, parks or streets, facilities?
Well, just because I always question and wonder about how that might adversely affect is if we're gonna start getting requests to change every other street or bridge, you know, somebody wants to name it, now they want to name it somebody else because they were very important to them. So I kind of, you know, I mean, I love General Thayer as much as anybody. But I just don't know if we're going to get into a situation where then somebody wants to name the bridge after their, you know, highly decorated and recognized relatives. So I don't know how we would deal with that, you know.
I think
I mean,
everyone-
once you change the name, is that it? It can never be changed again? Or do you say that there are certain places that we will not consider a name change? And then how do you figure out, well, what places will we consider?
Everyone needs to have a crack at it, every committee, you know, I think in order to change the name of a bridge, let's say, I think everyone would need to crack at this throughout the process.
I don't agree with this, however, of naming it after living individuals. I looked at a number of different cities that have it, and a lot of them, the individual has to be deceased for at least 5 years, and that seems more in line with what other people are doing.
You said 5 years?
Yes.
And like I said, I saw a range, I saw one that was much longer than 5 years, but I also saw one or two that recognized that if a person were living, it could still be honored, but then there was this process where you had to get their written permission to honor them. I mean, I personally would rather see it be, I think the word is posthumous, whatever, you know, which wouldn't be a problem for General Thayer, but I would rather not get into trying to do this for people who are still living, because you never know what they're gonna go do.
And I would be fine if we just had commemorative plaques and commemorative trees and not change names of things. I just think it
Yeah.
gets a little tricky, and how do you decide, you know,
Who's worthy?
yeah.
Well, when it's already documented over the years to be one thing, and so how do you change that? Or if you're looking it up, and then you're like, oh, well, that is not, you know, the name of that has changed, and the name of this over here has changed.
And the presidential streets, you know, we talk about what would be explained from what wouldn't be an option, you know, like presidential streets.
Right.
If you took one of those names out of there and switched it to Mountain Street or whatever, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
That's similar with
Yeah.
Tolovana.
Yeah, exactly. And as you go south, it's the same
Alaska
scenario.
place names.
So,
Yeah,
Well, we can also just omit streets from this, and public assets like the bandstand or bridge or whatever, Gower Street beach entrance, I don't know. people would want to name things after.
I think the way Les writes this, it would be, if this was adopted, it would be case by case, so the council could reject request upon request, it sounds like, so.
Well, but if we have some guidelines for them,
I know.
why they're
I know.
rejecting is what would be needed, and
That's a
that's where
change.
no presidential streets or
no streets.
no streets or something that's been named for over 20 years, that we might not want to change that name, but then I don't know. I mean,
Well, also one of the things I've noticed, they changed Ecola Creek to Ecola Creek and it was Elk Creek or something like that. And people are still upset about that, because they have a familiarity of what it should be called in their mind, and then it's changed, and then they have a hard time. So I think it's a slippery slope once we start
yeah,
changing names that have been there for quite a while,
yeah. I mean,
And then every map has to be changed. When we changed Nacoos, it was quite a few years ago, but a couple of years ago I was looking, and they had on the Commerce, City of Commerce, or whatever, they hadn't changed it on their maps. So it's like trying to catch all the places on the internet and everything that things are wrong also creates more work, so.
well, could we just exclude that and, like you said, just do trees and plaques, that's the way that we do commemorative gifts in Cannon Beach, and that
The plaques stay the same, you
the
can add
plaques,
trees.
the trees, and if you wanted to do a bench, you could ask for a variance or a special, if you had a place, you could
Yeah,
do a bench.
Kirk's had trouble with that.
Yeah,
Well, that's
We
what.
can go back to benches, but that's when they really want a plaque on.
But that's where, that could really be case by case, and they'd really have to submit a good reason and a good place and
Maybe I'll let Trevor speak.
So
to
it's very
benches.
difficult just because, every commemorative bench would be a different wood type and everything else, brackets, and it's hard for us to maintain that through the life of it. So I'm not a big fan of commemorative benches.
Yeah, I'm not anticipating a lot, but that would be like.
I get a lot of phone calls about benches.
No,
When
I
I
think
when I
benches
tell
are
them about
more
the
than
commemorative
trees.
plaque program,
Okay.
I get a lot of excitement about that. And
Okay.
they understand once I explain why we don't do the bench program. They're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's not
Yeah.
Phoenix, Arizona. So,
Right.
Things rot here.
yeah.
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 Well, just trying to give people options, I guess, is just
Well,
doing that.
That's how the plaque program came about, was this is your option.
Mhm.
Then you
Yeah.
expand it, doing the street thing, it expands those options a little bit. I hesitate on the bench because
Yeah.
people were pretty specific about locations, and they'd buy the bench. Actually, we've taken away a series of bizarre old benches that
Yeah.
now we have a DRB defined bench style that's, all our benches look the same.
So you can swap them out or do
So we can
repairs.
swap them out when they,
Well, Les, how would you feel about us taking out the portion of the commemorative gifting, that there wouldn't be an option for public assets?
I'm of two minds on that. One is my personal feeling, which is pretty much in agreement with what the conversation has been. I think there's lots of trouble that we cause ourselves unintendedly once we start making these changes, and and some of the policies that I read even had a lot of extra verbiage that I didn't stick in this draft, but think about that, how long something has been named, and how the public will perceive changing a name from something that they've been used to for 20 years. And, those are all important considerations. My one concern, though, just from a Parks Committee standpoint, though, is, as I understood it, the council asked for a recommendation, and it certainly could be, we don't recommend that you name public assets for individuals, but it's really their call.
Right.
And I would almost rather have give them what they ask for, some kind of a written procedure for how to do it, and then convince the council that they just should never do it, I suppose. I feel like we're taking something out of the council's purview on ourselves if we just eliminate that piece of it.
But we can make the recommendation to the council
Well-
that we believe that public assets don't need to be named at this time. I mean,
What was that
Sure,
specific?
I don't disagree at all, Stacy.
I think,
But I
I mean,
think that would be the recommendation.
yeah, I think we can listen to the meeting again and get the exact direction. And we can discuss it next month and, make sure that we, do as they requested.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going from my recollection, but it seemed to me like I felt like there was consensus among the council to seriously consider the naming request. And it was only when they got discussing, well, how do you go about doing that these questions came up. But I could be misreading the council's intent. I just don't want to, not do what we were asked to do.
Okay.
I'm with the group. I don't think it's a good idea. But
Well, we could
I'm not a counselor.
let the council know our thoughts about the public assets, and if they wanted us to consider it as an option, that we could
Bring it back.
bring it back.
Yeah. And the fact is, there are a number of cities that have, commemorative naming policies. So it's not like it's not like it's obviously a terrible idea, because there are a lot of places that do these kind of things.
And some of my reading, I read about streets, not renaming streets, but when a new street was developed, that was the time they pulled the trigger, or some cities would pull the trigger on, all right, what are we going to name this street? Unfortunately, in our community, all of our right-of-ways that are undeveloped already have names. The road doesn't exist, but on the county maps, it does have a street name. But that's kind of what I read with other cities. It's when they develop a new road that has no name, that's when they open it up to the public. What are we going to name this road?
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Because now, I mean, if the roads are all named, if you change the name of the street, like if we change Laurel to something else, well,
Oh, no.
Nobody's gonna know, it's like, what are you talking about? That's
Yeah.
a big
Makes it
street.
confusing
That's
to
right.
emergency personnel and everything
Yeah.
else
Yeah,
yeah,
to respond to.
yeah.
I think we're just a small enough community that it doesn't really make sense for us to start changing names of
Right.
streets.
And then you have to change it with the county, and then you have
Yeah.
to change it with the
Yeah.
post office, and I think you get into a
And
mess if you do
I don't think
that.
you wanna make your
Mhm.
name too wordy either, then it's
Yeah.
hard to,
Ask yourselves, what's the policy? So now, there still is a policy to name new things. I'm thinking about South Wing or Nacoos. So how does that come about? How do those get named? Is that relevant to this discussion?
well,
New.
this is
I
about
mean-
gift, this is commemorative gifts, so if we're just going about with a new street
Renaming
naming,
policy, okay.
yeah, we would probably,
I think there's an opportunity to honor like the memory of these individuals, like, General Thayer, in a way that wouldn't necessarily be renaming something, but maybe putting like a small interpretive panel at the bridge that isn't naming the bridge in his honor, but, First Street Bridge in honor of General Thayer, that would, I don't know what Tommy or Mark would want to do, but we could always have just a small plaque that says this is who this individual was. He's an important individual in this community, or has done important things in this world. Small picture, and it's not renaming, but it's still providing honor for that individual, because Mark came to the city with a proposal that I think he really cares about, the Legion really cares about, and I don't want to just push them aside and say we're not naming a bridge.
Well, when we went to Snohomish, their American Legion actually was, on the side, there was this beautiful mural, and it had a person's name and the Legion post. So I just wonder if the Legion has considered naming their post after him.
that's something that I thought would be a
Karen?
good way for the Legion to honor him.
Just a couple things I'll add. There is a process we have to go through to change any platted street. And so it isn't just a matter of the city making a decision to change the name. There's definitely a process, as you mentioned, with the county and everything else. So that's quite a tedious process to go through. But I think Les made a good point, and the council had kind of made their decision, but what they were looking for was a process. And so Hannah makes a good point. There's a viable request that's on the table. What they're looking for is a process from you guys of how they should go about this now and going forward. But it should have something in there of a time frame that gives the community a chance to weigh in. Because I think that's where they were struggling, is they didn't really feel like maybe the community had a chance to really weigh in on it. And here it was, a decision put in their lap and really hadn't gone through any of our committees per se, in a formal way. So put a process together that says something about each case is handled on a case-by-case basis based on the compelling story and the individual that's involved and their contribution to the community. Given a 90-day time period where the community can weigh in, and put those exclusions in there, such as we don't want to see City Hall named after anybody. We don't want to see a pump station or something like that named after somebody. Stick with the more general things, because we do have items in town that are named after people. We have parks named after people. So they need a process.
Okay?
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Okay, so should we come back to this then again next month? And is that the best next step? With some changes to,
Is council expecting to hear from us regarding this at their next,
I don't
We
think
have
there
to
was.
start the process and
Okay.
continue moving forward.
okay.
Yeah, there's not.
I think that's a good idea, Stacy. I've got some pretty good notes on, the conversation that we've been having, and I have a really good feeling about, having some exclusions, being much more limited in the kinds of things that the council could even be asked to consider. But I think it's important to have a process, and, that it involves plenty of opportunity for public input. And that's what's missing right now. There isn't any policy. What's written in this draft is 30 days, because that was what I think Lake Oswego maybe had, I forget now where I pulled it from, but I think even 90 days is not out of the question for folks to think about it and weigh in. The community should be part of renaming, not a small group of interested people. And I think a process could be drafted to do that.
Okay. Good thoughts. Anybody have any others? No? Okay, so we'll talk about it again next month then and be closer to, having it finalized. And then, I don't think there was any rush from the council, they just wanted a policy, if I recall, but I could be wrong. Okay, thanks everybody for your thoughts and for all your work, Les.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Les.
Stacy, can I ask one quick question?
Of course.
Trevor, did I understand correctly that you or Karen, or at least the city, is going to put something different, or at least modify the current tree language that I've got there for that tree memorial piece?
Correct. We're going to come up with some language, and we should have something that we can review and discuss. But yeah, we're going to come up with that language.
Okay,
Okay, good, thank you.
that'll be great, that'll be great. Thank you everybody, Karen and Trevor, everybody for all the, and I was happy to hear the council was really excited about the possibility of the memorial trees. Yeah, that's awesome, that's awesome.
Stacy, just to add to that, the whole idea behind that was to try to get more trees planted in the community by having ODOT allow us to use some of their property that's not only within our community but surrounding it. But Anita makes a really good point. If somebody decided that they didn't want to donate a new tree to plant, and they wanted to identify a heritage tree, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
And only difference is there's no limitation towards the number of trees that we want to plant more of, but there is a limitation on how many heritage trees you're doing a year. You guys have limited yourself to 1 a year, so we may already have that one, so if somebody tries to donate a heritage tree, they can nominate, but there's really no action until you get to your
Till the next year.
next opportunity. So keep that in mind, but it's a great idea. The idea is to get more trees planted. you know.
Exactly. Since we are Tree City.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, great. So next is the review of the ECFR stewardship plan. We did have a lot of reading this month. Did everybody have a chance to look at the plan that was updated in September or in the fall of 2022? Get to that. As I said last month, we spent a lot of years on that plan, that update, and it was just recently approved. So if you all are okay with that, we can, unless you each have any changes, then we can forward that on to the council with the recommendation that they approve it again. And then we can move forward with any action items. We can request any action items that we see need to be worked on. How does everybody feel about that?
Sure.
I agree.
And I think, because council has already approved it as it is, if you just wanted to draft a letter as a committee saying that you had no changes to it and send that along to them as their update for it, I think that would probably be sufficient.
Okay, I think that's what Jen
Yep.
told you too, so
Yep.
that's great. So you all are okay with that then? All right, let's do it.
Yes.
Would somebody like to make a motion? I think we probably need a motion, don't we? Or do we not?
You don't need to, if you're all in agreement. You can if you'd like.
Okay, well, let's just not make a motion then, and then we'll just draft a letter. We'll have it for the next month's meeting. We can approve that, and then we can send it on to council.
Perfect.
Okay.
Nice.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
I know it's a big document to read. And Betty, next, reserve cleanup.
Oh, so we're gonna be working this week on Saturday from 10 to noon we're gonna start at Les Shirley and then we're gonna move over to Nakoos and we're gonna be working on Scotch broom. And I noticed there's some holly starting and some smaller blackberries. So we'll be looking at anything we see that is invasive. And there's also maybe some yellow iris over there by Les Shirley. So we're gonna be looking for those invasives and removing them. And I didn't see that much Scotch broom, but is it okay to put it out by the perimeter of Nakoos and Les Shirley, the debris, or should we just, what do you guys recommend?
Think like a pickup truck. Put it someplace where we can access it.
Okay,
And it's
Say
okay,
next to the sidewalk, and you can just
right
up there
And
and throw it in the
Nakoos,
truck.
it could be off to any place off to the edge, because we can drive all over that
right,
part.
okay.
And less surely it would be nice to have it on the edge of an asphalted area,
Okay,
because there's sprinklers out there we don't want to drive on.
yeah, okay, okay.
And Nakoos could be any place, just for visual reasons, maybe not right in the middle, so
No, yeah.
off to any edge. And
So is it a good idea if we call you when we're done?
I think the plan is to, somebody texts or emails Trevor, and then he lets AJ know where it is.
Please text Karen, because I will not be here.
But no, and
And I
rather
won't
than
be here
change,
either.
rather than change that policy, text Karen this month. Next month, go back and text Trevor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they'll communicate with the underlings to pick it up.
You want to deal with city business on your vacation?
He's leaving his phone.
Okay.
And you said Grand Flagg's gonna be involved in
Oh,
this?
right,
so then-
we're lucky that the Watershed Council is blasting it out to their members, so hopefully we'll have a lot of people coming.
The,
And when they come, I'm gonna ask them, next month, I'm hoping to get back to the spruce forest and keep working on that. So I'm gonna tell the watershed people there's more to do if they're interested. And if any of you know younger people that are just want to be part of helping Cannon Beach, we just need a lot of younger people to help us. We're looking into the schools, but summertime the schools are, hard to connect to, but we really want to grow this program and make it, if we had 20 people every week, we would have a great, every third week, we would have a great, we could see the impact, so.
Along the trail on the north edge of Nacoos, there's 10 spruce trees that the children planted, maybe 3 or 4 years ago for 12 days. I'm just asking you to be careful.
Oh, yeah, I see those. And so I was supposed to ask you, for a while you were saying don't do the blackberry around the trees. Do you want that?
No, yeah, you can do it now. I think that mostly applies to cedar. In other words, I think it helps protect them from browsing animals.
Right.
These are spruce trees, and they popped up above the blackberry, so you can clear them out, but that's what I meant by be careful. Like if someone's going like this, pick off the top of the tree.
Right. We'll be careful.
They'll still survive if you don't do it, but I don't think they'd mind having a little bit
Having
more
more
breathing room.
space, yeah. Okay.
Thanks so much.
Tessa, do you know if we've been able to determine how to streamline or make the volunteer waiver paperwork a little
Yeah.
easier to?
Yeah, I was actually just gonna say, I chatted with our lawyer about this a little bit, and it won't be ready for this Saturday, but there are ways that we can do this online. We'll still have to have somebody making sure that everyone there is able to do it, but we can make it a digital process for folks. So I would stick with paper in the meantime, and then probably keep a few paper copies on hand too, just in case people can't access the digital one. But we should be able to do that. I just want to have her walk through everything before we send it out to the public. So.
Would it be set up so that if you volunteer and you sign all the waivers that you're good to go for the entire, or is this something that you have to sign a waiver every time you go? Because to me, that's what's going to keep people back. If they can just go and sign their name and they're good for every time they go volunteer,
Yeah,
it seems to be what we would.
We did also touch on, if you're doing this, and we'd want to do it at least seasonally, have people sign up again, but as long as the activities are similar enough, we could have people acknowledge that they'll be doing these just in different locations, and then sign it up for the season, essentially.
We have to name it, so if we named it, the cleanup crew, and and then they just sign it, and so they're part of the cleanup crew now. Wherever they go, it kind of follows them.
Yeah, and
for liability
whoever's
purposes.
coordinating will need to be cross-checking to make sure that people have filled out waivers if they're showing
Okay.
up.
Okay.
But otherwise, yeah, I think that doing it this way should help not have to do it every single time you do this. So, yeah, give me this month before our next meeting to work on that with the attorney and get it ready to go.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we
That's
should
awesome.
be
Thank you.
able to do it.
So this Saturday, I would need to have volunteer forms?
Mhm.
Okay, I gotta find some.
I can print you some.
Also in the past, before I had such help, and I was a little younger and energetic, I did all the Scotch brewing along the estuary, and I just left it.
You left it?
Like, don't clean up, except for the big ones, but there aren't any big ones. They broke down and disappeared. They won't re-sprout. Scotch brew won't.
Yeah.
So,
But would it,
you got little Scotch, you got armfuls of stuff this tall. I'd recommend just leave it.
but what is it is it the flower that turns into a seed?
The seed pods, they aren't ready yet.
They're big, they're not ready
You
yet.
get them now before they go to seed. They
Okay,
won't be in
okay.
seed.
Yeah, okay,
I think it's
good to know.
half inch, when you cut it, it'll re-sprout, but if it's over that, you cut it, stop.
Scotch brew. I haven't seen much of it. To me, it's the little stuff. Well, actually, what I used to do is pull it out. That's when it's little, but don't hurt yourselves.
Right. Right.
Do you
Yeah,
have
when it's little, it's better to pull it out, because I think if it's a certain height and you cut it, if it's small enough, it will sprout off of that, but once the stalk gets a certain thickness and you cut it, it will just die.
Okay, good to know.
do you have a T-post puller?
So,
Because those are good for like getting under the roots of big plants and then using the leverage to pull it up.
What is that called?
Like a T-post puller, like the T-posts that you insert in the ground that have the, flared edges. The tool to pull those out works just as well for getting
Well, the
rid
big
of
ones you
scuff
can
burns.
just cut and it'll die. I'm talking about like little ones that you can
Yeah,
just pull out with
yeah,
your hands.
okay.
Great, thanks. Anything for good of the order today? Go ahead, Vic.
So this is at the end of Washington Street on the ocean. We had last year an area that is being degraded. And I noticed this year it's actually worse. And I was gonna plant stuff there, but it's becoming kind of a ravine. And it's behind the trash can. You know what I'm talking about, Kurt?
I do.
Yeah, so I would think if we could put some kind of a fence or something there and plant, because what's happening now is the kids have found it and they're jumping off there and it's becoming deeper, so.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I know. So what do you think? I should,
So I'm gonna send an email to my parks guy, because that's technically not our world there.
I don't think we should put a fence, well, I'll defer to Trevor.
So I'll send an email to my parks guy right now and have him take a look.
okay,
No offense, none of that stuff, but.
okay.
Well, I brought it up a couple months ago and I just want to see if we can get it on the agenda for a future meeting to talk about requesting that A-trap be under our designation. So,
Okay.
So how is it right now? How are?
there's no committee oversight over A-trap. As far as I understand, it's just the city manager is the next step after Kelly.
But committees aren't oversight, committees are advisory.
Well, advisory,
So-
there's no advisory then.
Are they a nonprofit?
No, they're part of
They're
the
a
city.
city-funded program.
Oh, okay.
More effective just to cut it because of the.
That's been my experience right now, was actually,
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know it was actually true. It's cool to see.
all right, anything else?
It's like.
All right, we are adjourned.
It's big, cut it.
Thanks, everybody, for your
Good
patience.
job.
Bye, Les, thank you.
Yeah.
Half hour late.
Thank you, Les.
Bye, Les.
You too. Have fun with Henry.
Insane. I will. But I know what you mean, other places.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Karen.
Take care.
So AJ, right there on, at that place I'm talking about, where there's that drop off, there's some blackberries there, I will be digging them out. And there's some on the corner of Laurel